Welcome, everyone. Alay Yajnik in the driver's seat today. We're going to get into one of the topics that is near and dear to my heart, which is productivity. So welcome to today's topic, the Productivity Toolkit. As always, the group chat lines are open. So, and I mean that in a totally non-sicko way. So if you have any questions, comments, just go ahead and type it into the chat box so we can get started. We've got a lot to get into today, so let's just go ahead and get into it. When we talk about productivity, it's a topic that is near and dear to not only my heart, but the hearts of most of my clients. Is something that comes up pretty early on in the coaching engagement, and we continue with it really almost throughout. What we're going to be doing today is we're going to be taking a bit of a doctor's approach to time management, which is going to be starting with symptoms, then we're going to move into diagnosis, and lastly, we'll be talking about cures. There have been so many books written about productivity and time management. There's just no way that I could cover it all, and I don't think you'd want me to. In fact, we're actually not going to address the most powerful lever on our productivity. We're not going to address it today, but I would like to know what you think it happens to be. So just go ahead and type into the chat box, what do you think the most powerful productivity tactic is? Just go ahead and type that in, and I will see if I can get my video screen up. Hey, look at that. There we go. All right, Jake says, not checking email every hour. Good guess. That's actually something we are going to cover today. David, I love your answer. Could you elaborate on it a little bit? Terry says, setting focused time. Yeah, that's a good one too. So David had a good one. He said organization, which is, that can mean a couple of different things. So you're on the right track if you mean what I think you mean. So just, if you wouldn't mind clarifying it for me, we can figure that out. So David he's definitely on the right path when he says organization. So what do you think I mean when I say organization is a powerful lever for productivity? David says organization means planning and structuring your day and not being reactive. That is an awesome take, and we're going to be covering that today. What I was moving towards is actually delegation and your team. The most powerful way to maximize your productivity is to have a team that you can delegate non-essential tasks to. The more you want to accomplish in your business, the bigger your team needs to be so you can delegate more. We have a whole set of webinars around team, and so we're going to be taking all that discussion about delegation and covering that over the next, I think it's the next 3 webinars or so, is going to be all focused on the team. So we're not going to be covering that today. Today, we're just going to be focusing on individual productivity. And so what we're going to do is cover the 3 most impactful things that you can do immediately to improve your productivity, like today, tomorrow. So this is going to be really, really straightforward and really practical that you can put to use right away. So make sure you're in a quiet space. Make sure you've got your pen ready to write. Most of these webinars have been about 15 minutes teaching and 45 minutes doing. This one's going to be a little bit different. We've got about 30 minutes of teaching and 30 minutes of doing, roughly. As you know, this is very interactive, so go ahead and type into the chat box if you have a question or you have a comment, okay? All right, so here's the challenge. The first issue the number one issue that really my clients talk to me about is email. We're obsessed with our inbox. Completely obsessed with it. We focus on it all the time. And just go ahead and type into the chat box, what challenges does it create for you to be so focused on your email inbox? Just go ahead and type that in, I want to hear what you have to say. I can't get my work done, says David. That's true. It's very hard, right? Terry says, distracting and leads to surfing. Ooh, that's a good one. Yep, it certainly does. Well, as those other answers are coming in, so from Jake, I feel like it's my go-to to-do list. If I don't have anything else written down, I just jump in immediately. Right, exactly. Very nice. Those are all great responses, and you're dead on. The problem my clients have is they see email the wrong way. They don't see it for what it is. And basically, email is a waste. That's right. I did say that. Email is a total waste. Now, I get it. It's also completely necessary. So I'm not going to go on to a rant about email. Don't worry about that. But I do want to tell you a quick story, if I could, about email. My first management job, I was running a team of about 15 ultrasound technical support engineers. These people had 20 plus years in the industry. They were very, very good at what they did. And I had the good fortune of working with them. They were a super easy group to manage, so it was a perfect first go around as a manager. But they were also really senior. They had decades of experience on me. So that posed some interesting challenges as well. But what was really, really interesting was I was talking to one of them, and we were doing I think this was our 6-month check-in. And I asked him, so what have you been doing over the past, week or so? And he said, oh, I've sent out about 150 emails a day. And I said, great. But we're not actually paid to send emails. We're paid to do a job. So what other things have you done besides send emails? He said, well, that's a good question, because I was so slammed with all my emails, I didn't really have time to do anything else. And that's exactly the crux of it, is most of us are not paid to send emails. We're paid to get the job done. So what we're going to be talking about is this concept of email as e-waste, and how we can take that time and maybe do something else with it. So that's the number one issue, is email for most of my clients. And the key issue there is they see it as email. They should be seeing it as e-waste, because it's wasting their time. The second issue is that time just slides right by. We're really busy, to be sure. That's not an issue. It's not that we're just twiddling our thumbs. We have a lot going on. But we lack follow-through at a certain point. We kind of lose our momentum. Maybe we get defocused. Whatever happens, we just don't follow through, and we're not really in our productivity zone. And the next thing that happens is we know that it's the end of the day. And then the end of the day becomes the end of the week. The end of the week becomes the end of the month. The end of the month becomes the end of the year. And we realize we haven't accomplished the important things that we had set out to do. So a quick question for you. What's the number one thing that keeps you from working on those important things? Just type that in the chat box right now. Love to hear what you have to say. What's the number one thing that keeps you from working on the important things? Distractions. Let's see. A couple of people have said distractions, interruptions, colleagues. Terry says identifying what's important. Okay. Yeah. Everyone has cited distractions. A lot of you have cited interruptions. Someone said just plain and simple work. Yeah, I know. Okay. So the number one thing generally that people are chiming in with is distractions keep you from working on those important things. So we're going to talk about that in a little bit. So the third issue is is just a simple truth, and this goes back to what one of you said in the text. Excuse me, in the chat window there. The truth is that we are overwhelmed by our businesses most of the time. Sometimes there's just so much going on, and the pace is so intense that we just forget to breathe. Or it seems like it anyway. And we just need to do a reset, take a few simple breaths, right? Take a few simple breaths to regain our mental balance and regain our mental poise. The truth of the matter is, as business owners, we spend a lot of time really as emergency responders because we're doing a lot of firefighting. And now this is not a productivity issue per se, because no one's going to accuse an emergency responder of being unproductive in a crisis. But there is a problem with that approach to running a business, which is that firefighting and always reacting to emergencies, that actually gets you really ramped up emotionally. In fact, your body is probably giving off adrenaline. If you're under a pressing deadline, if you've got a lot of customers demanding a lot of things of your time throughout the day, if you have a lot going on and you're just jumping from fire to fire to fire, your adrenaline is really going. And the problem with that is adrenaline can be a little bit addictive, especially because most of us as business owners, we tend to be the overachieving types, the people that really want to excel. And so we really get excited when we get that adrenaline surge. And we really love the thrill of being in the middle of a really, really busy situation and getting a lot done. The problem is not so much that situation, but what happens once it's resolved. What happens once it's resolved is that you kind of tend to crash. You crash emotionally, and you crash mentally. Sometimes you just kind of sit there and wait for the next issue to hit you upside the head. At best, you're just going to need some time to recover, and you're feeling tired. But at worst, you might actually need another shot of adrenaline, another emergency to get you going again. And if you don't have that shot of adrenaline, if you don't have that fire burning, you're just going to sit back and, troll Facebook, go through your inbox. One of the things there's kind of a story around this. I'm sorry, it's a little bit of a story, but I have to tell you. And this does relate. So one of my clients, former client actually, just loves to read business improvement stuff. The person's just a voracious business improvement person. So every time I would talk with them, she would ask me and say, "Have you read this? This just came out. Did you look at this and look at that?" And I would always say no and no and no and no and no. And then we'd get on with our plan and go through it. And then finally one day I just kind of laughed and said, "You read a lot of articles on business improvement, don't you?" And she said, "Yes, I do. I take my business seriously. That's why I have you there." I said, "But I noticed you're reading a lot of these articles during business hours." So 2 questions. The first is, are you implementing anything that you read? To which she said, no. And the second question is, why are you reading business improvement articles when you should be actually working and running in your business? She said, "I'm just tired. I have a lot going on. And instead of surfing the internet or just getting up and taking a walk, I feel guilty. And so I read business improvement articles. So I feel like I'm still being productive and trying to do the right thing for my business." So that's sort of the worst case scenario, right? Is you're just so exhausted that the only thing you can do is just mentally zone out and wait for the next emergency to show up. And we don't want that. So the end result of all this is that you're doing this classic hamster wheel. You're running really hard. You're checking a lot of boxes. You're getting a lot of things done. But your business isn't really moving at all. And you're working 6 to 7 days a week. You're working 70-plus hours a week. And your effective hourly rate, which is all the hours that you work, whether you bill them out or not, but all the hours that you work, and then you take all the money you make divided by all the hours you work, and that's your actual hourly rate. So your effective hourly rate is below that of what you could get if you were just had a standard job, 9-to-5 job behind a corporate desk. And that's not what ownership is supposed to be about. What it's supposed to be about is income and time off. It should be about money, meaning, and freedom. And that's what we want to get from our business. So here's the opportunity. What if we could control our inbox so that it's not actually a productivity trap? So we could do the things we needed to do. Email was an asset and a communication tool like it's supposed to be. So we could actually move our business forward, and it would actually help us do that. So what if we could get control over our email inbox? We also need a way to track how we're spending our time so we can understand how to improve our productivity. Remember I said that we're going to try and take a doctor type approach to the situation? Well, the first part about that is trying to figure out, okay, well, what exactly is going on? And so we need an effective way to track our time so we can analyze that quickly and easily and find opportunities to be even more productive. Lastly, we need to really change our mindset. So we need to shift from this reactive approach of firefighting and dealing with the emergencies and kind of waiting for the phone to ring. We want to be intentional about how we spend, ideally, every minute or every hour of every workday, so that we're doing the critical things that we need to do to make progress in our business in terms of increasing our income and taking more time off. So I'm going to expound a little bit on how I view productivity, because as we get into this, it's important that we're all clear on this. From my point of view, we're only on this earth for so many hours, so many minutes, so many days. So time equals life. The two are one and the same. If you increase your productivity, you should be increasing your quality of life. But it's not actually about doing more with the time you have. People, when we talk about time management and productivity, they always seem to either want that 25th hour or they want to get a lot more done in the time that they have. And it's actually not about doing more. Being really productive is actually about doing less. And here's what I mean by that. Let me give you a quick example. Let's say there was a task that took you 5 hours. But instead of it taking you 5 hours, you got it done in 5 minutes. How productive were you? Pretty darn productive, I expect. So here's the thing. Productivity from our perspective and for the perspective for the rest of this discussion, productivity has nothing to do with activity. Productivity is all about results. In fact, I've got a definition here. Let me bring it up. Here we go. So here's the definition I want to use today. Productivity is going to equal the maximum results within the shortest period of time. Okay? So productivity equals maximum progress in the shortest time. And by progress, we're talking about increasing income and doing things to increase your time off. So just a quick check-in. We've talked about a lot already. What's been most valuable for you so far? Go ahead and type that in the chat box. So a lot of people are chiming in with the productivity formula. Okay, good. Terry says thinking about the productivity paradigm you're describing. Yeah. So productivity equals maximum progress in the shortest time. That's not necessarily a definition you would find, but it is what we're going to be using as we go through, the rest of the session today. So David, being intentional about where I invest and spend every minute of every day, and working less and achieving more. Yeah, exactly. In fact, you'll find, David, that once you're really focused on high productivity tasks, you are going to be working less, because those high productivity tasks require a lot of thought, but they don't always require that much action. So you spend a lot of time thinking, or a lot more time thinking, and maybe a lot less time doing. But in the course of doing that, you'll actually find that you're moving your business ahead much faster than if you were just charging away. And that is actually a mindset that is how I come up with Spark, which is that if you want to take and add significant amount of revenue to your business, one of the smartest ways you can do that is by taking more and more time off, because it forces you to make changes in your business in a smart way rather than just trying to get there through hard work, right? You got to work smart. And as it turns out, working smart is a nice way to take more time off, so it all plays together. Terry asks, can you bill for thinking? Well, probably not, but you can get rewarded for thinking. Okay, let's move on. So 3 keys to get maximum benefit. Key number 1, you got to respect your time. The number 1 issue in being productive is self-respect for your time. We just don't value our time as well as, or as highly as we should, and myself included. I'm not perfect at this either. We want to be nice. We want to help others. We want to say yes. But in fact, what we should be doing is saying no a lot more often than we all do. And like I said, this is something that I work on as well. In fact, have you noticed that the more successful the person, the harder it is to get their time? That's not a coincidence. The successful people, time is not, so people that are successful value their time very highly. And we can discuss about what came first, whether they were successful first and they valued their time then at a higher rate. But my suspicion would be, and I think if you think about this, you would agree, one of the reasons that they're so successful is because they do value their time so highly. So just think about this. What benefits would it be for you if you valued your time more highly than you do today? And maybe a different way of asking the same question is, if you valued your time as, let's just pick a number, $400 an hour. Let's say your time was valued at $400 an hour. What would you do differently than what you do today? So if you valued your time at a premium hourly rate, what would you do differently than what you do today? Let's go ahead and type a quick answer into the chat box. And this, yes, this is exactly where delegation comes in. Yeah. Not take as many coffee meetings. Yep. Move a lot differently and delegate a lot more. Hire more staff, delegate more. Be more selective on the clients that I work with. Yep. Excellent point. So this is something that we all need to work on all the time, and we can always get better at doing this. And what I would say is we all need to value our time more highly than we do today. So key number 2, productivity is measured, as we talked about, by maximum progress in the shortest amount of time. So we can only achieve that goal if we do important tasks versus the quick and easy tasks. And it sounds really straightforward, but in fact, it's not straightforward at all. It's very easy for me to sit here and say, do the important tasks before the easy tasks. Duh. I think we all agree with that up here. The problem is, we're actually psychologically wired back here in the emotional part of our brain to check off tasks. So you may have heard this, it's pretty well documented, but each time we check something off a list, we actually get a surge of a chemical called dopamine in our brain. And dopamine is a chemical that stimulates the pleasure centers of our brain and is often associated with addictive drugs. So a lot of addictive drugs release large amounts of dopamine into the pleasure centers of our brain. Also, sometimes food will have that effect as well. So this is one of the reasons why we prioritize the easy tasks first, because literally, the more things we check off our to-do list, the more dopamine we get. The happier we feel, right? So that being said, given that we're psychologically wired to check things off of our list and get those surges of dopamine, then how do we prioritize important before easy, right? How can we do that? Well, I suspect, this is only a suspicion, there's no studies or anything like that to back this up, but I suspect when you're kicking back on that island with a nice drink in your hand, your toes in the sand, and your income has gone up by 6 figures or more, there's probably going to be some dopamine benefits to doing that. And also, you're going to, once you get those most important tasks knocked out and done, then you're in a position to delegate everything else, and that will probably result in some increased dopamine as well. So that's the trade-off. We have to force ourselves to do differently than what our brain is wired to do. We have to prioritize the important tasks before the easy ones. That's rule number 2. The third key is discipline. And this is oftentimes the most challenging one. Maximizing your productivity requires discipline. There's no two ways about it. The best way to do this is to refocus every single day. It's a daily exercise to be able to refocus on this. You can't simply do it once, for example, on this call, and then expect it to carry you through anything beyond today. You really have to refocus daily. And what I would suggest is some sort of a ritual is really, really helpful. So even if your ritual is as simple as the night before you're going to create your task list, that can help. A morning ritual can also help. So rituals, whether it's done the night before or done just before you leave your office, maybe you do your to-do list for the following day, those kinds of things can help. A morning ritual where maybe you go to the gym in the morning and then you have a nice breakfast and then you come into your office and you sit down with a cup of coffee and figure out your game plan for the day, that can help too. However you do it, though, just don't expect perfection. Go easy on yourself, especially if this is a new habit that you're trying to create and you haven't done a lot of this stuff before. There's just going to be days where you're disciplined and days when you're not disciplined. A lot of the things that I do to keep myself on track with regards to time management are very similar to weight loss strategies as well. They share a lot in common, but productivity actually has a nice edge over weight loss. And here's the edge. No matter how bad you've been as far as productivity goes, the next day is a new day. And it's a blank slate, and you're not carrying anything over from the past. I wish we could say the same thing about weight, but unfortunately, it doesn't quite work that way. So you're going to be, it's almost as if, with regards to productivity and using the weight loss analogy, it's almost as if when you start the day, you're starting at your ideal weight. And then everything you do from there on out will help you get in better shape or worse, but you're going to be starting out at an ideal weight. Where you end up is totally up to you guys. So don't beat yourself up if you're not perfect on this. Nobody is. But just build up your discipline bit by bit by bit by bit and enjoy the rewards that come with it. If you find you've disciplined yourself and you've done a really good job of staying on task and super focused for 3 or 4 days in a row, take a day off and just enjoy for a little bit, okay? Enjoy those rewards. It's really important. So discipline's important, but it's got to be disciplined daily, as daily as you can. So those 3 keys: respecting your time, important over easy, and discipline daily. Which one would be most helpful for you? Just go ahead and type it in the chat box now. 1, 2, or 3. Either respecting your time, important before easy, or discipline daily. So we have some votes for discipline daily, some votes also for important before easy. Terry says they're all important, but discipline is the key to all of it. Well said, Terry. Without discipline, none of the other things are going to work. Excellent. So let's get into this. So there's a few things we're going to be teaching, or I'm going to be teaching with you today, specifically 3 tactics. And you may have, if you work with me one-on-one, or if you've seen one of my presentations, you might have encountered one or more of these. Okay, so it's a lot of the same stuff. Let's see here. See if I can do this. You share. Okay. So I'm going to be firing up my iPad here. And it should be coming up for you here in a minute. Okay. So you should be able to see my iPad. If you could, just quickly type into the chat window either a Y for yes, I can see your iPad, Ale, or a no for no, I cannot. What are you thinking? Okay, cheers. Thanks, Jake. So the first thing we want to talk about is email, and I want to give you a couple of strategies I use with my clients for email. Now, depending on your specific style, one or more of these strategies will work for you. Okay, David, I think your screen's probably just needs to be refreshed a little bit. Okay, good, I'm glad. Okay, so what we're going to be doing, the first thing we're going to be talking about is email. So just if you could, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 is absolutely terrible, email is a total time suck, and I'm completely out of control, to 10 being I'm a total master of email. How would you score yourself with regards to email productivity, or email and its impact on your productivity? Scale of 1 to 10, just go ahead and type in a quick number. So we have quite a range here. Seeing some 6s, 5s, 3s. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking about 3 different coping strategies for dealing with email. And depending on your situation, you might find one of these more valuable than another, or you might want to do some or potentially even all of them. But I'm just going to go through these in order. The first thing is we have this natural tendency when we get an email to want to respond to it right away. So you check your email. You have to check your email because you're in a client-facing role, so you can't not check it. So an email comes through, you see it come through, and now you've got a boom. You feel like you've got to fire off a reply because you don't want to forget, and it's just going to take a few seconds, and whatever other excuses you want to make. The challenge with that, and I think one of you mentioned this when we were talking earlier, is when you get something like that, and you respond, it's very easy to go down the rabbit hole. And the next thing you know, you've spent an hour or so on email and haven't gotten anything else done, right? And that's not the way you wanted to spend that time. So when we use email, and if you use Outlook, it's going to be a flag. If you use Google, it's going to be a star. And if you use other email clients, I don't know what it is, but there's a way to flag messages for follow-up. And there's usually a little flag icon that you can do. In Google, it's a star feature. And so what you can do when you get an email that comes in that does not require a response right away, meaning it's not a client emergency, what you can actually do is you go ahead and you flag the email, but you don't reply to the email. That is key. So you can flag it, but you don't reply just yet. Instead, you're going to reply either over lunch hour or when the day is done, or maybe the next day. Okay? Because most of the email traffic does not demand a response at all, and a fair bit of it doesn't demand a response even that day. There's only a small percentage of email traffic that demands a response right now. And if you've got great spam filters and you've done the right things with regards to email blocking, those percentages may change. But in general, most of the email does not need to be responded to right away. People can wait, or they should be calling you if it's something more important, or perhaps sending you a text message, right? So what we want to do, strategy number one, is to flag the emails for follow-up, but not to reply. And if you just did that throughout the course of the day, which is, by the way, this is a strategy I use. So as I go through every day, I'm flagging things for follow-up, but I'm not responding to any of them. And I'll get back to them at the end of the day, or sometimes the next morning, but I won't do it typically during business hours because I'm either coaching or I'm working on my business, right? So that's the first one, flagging email for follow-ups but not responding. And please, by the way, as we're going through this, if you have any questions, just type it into the chat box because I want to make sure that the tactics, if you have any questions, we get those sorted out so you can put them to use right away. So the first one is flag, but don't respond. The second one is time blocking. Now, time blocking is a tactic that people use to organize their day. What they basically do is they take their calendar and they block out chunks of time. So they'll say in the morning they're doing something here, and then they've got, client meetings here, and then they have maybe a lunch break, and then more meetings, and then they block it out here at the bottom, right? So people use this kind of a tactic to create blocks of time during which they do specific kinds of activity. Normally, I'm not a huge fan of time blocking. It can be used situationally for terrific things, but what ends up happening is when emergencies pop up, as they always do, the first thing that goes are the people's time blocks, and then it's very hard to get back on track. But nevertheless, that's the concept of time blocking, and if that idea sounds intriguing to you, which is blocking out some time every single day to do a focused kind of activity, if you think your business lends itself to that, then by all means, this one might work really well for you. And here's what you do. You're just going to give yourself permission to deal with some emails during the day. So I had a client about 1.5 years ago. Email was it was his number one issue, and it was crippling, just killing his productivity. And we did time blocks. We also did the number one as well, which is flagging it. So what he would do when emails came in, is the first thing he would do was he would flag it for follow-up, but he wouldn't follow up just then. The second thing he would do is he would respond during his time block windows. And so for him, he wanted to have a morning window, an early afternoon window, And then on his own, he would respond at night, kind of after dinner while he was watching TV. So those were his 3 windows for responding to emails. And so what he would do is he would flag an email for follow-up, and then in the morning, I think he had blocked it at like 10 a.m. or something. He blocked about an hour to respond to his emails, and then he would shut it down when that hour was up. He actually set a little timer for himself. So at the end of that, when 11 o'clock hit, reminder came up saying stop the emails. And then his afternoon email was like 3 p.m. to about 4 p.m. And again, he would stick to that 1 hour window, answer the emails he had to answer, and then stop because a little timer would come up at 4 o'clock, a little reminder saying, time to stop, you got to get back to work. And that's what he would do. And then at night, over dinner, or after dinner, I should say, when he was watching TV, he would respond to email, during the commercials. When he followed these 2 techniques together, he was able to totally get his email management under control, and he was able to carve out some time to go out and meet with his top-tier clients and develop other top-tier clients as a result. So these 2 techniques working together can be very, very powerful if your business can lend itself to blocking out pretty much every day, maybe an hour in the morning and an hour in the afternoon for your time blocks. If anyone has any questions on flagging but not responding or time blocks, please let me know. Okay, the third thing, delegating. This one is tricky, and not a lot of people are trusting enough to do it. But if you can, delegating is probably the most powerful way to free up your email. And it's usually comprised of 2 steps. Step number 1, you need to find someone to read your emails. That way, you don't have to. The second thing you have to do is you have to get out of their way so they can do their job and read your emails. A lot of the top executives, they're banned from their email box. They are not allowed to check their email because their executive assistants do that for them. And so whether you have an executive assistant, a virtual assistant, or just a close family member who you can trust, if you can find someone who is open to the idea of taking over your email box and triaging the emails for you and then identifying for you at a certain time of day using your time block what to do with those, then you're going to be in really good shape because you can have the best of both worlds. You can be ultra responsive because someone else is responding to your emails and that's all that they're supposed to do. So you can be ultra responsive, but you can do it without sacrificing your productivity. So delegating your email is one of the most powerful ways that you can get out of this email trap. And a lot of virtual assistants, a lot of good admins will do that as part of their task. And believe me, it's time well spent because it's going to give you a lot of peace of mind, a lot of organization, and an ability to work on tasks that are going to be higher value add for your business. So this is a quick question for you guys. Out of those for email, either flagging but not following up right away, number 1, time blocking, number 2, or delegation, number 3, which is most attractive to you? Just type that in the chat box now, 1, 2, or 3. Excuse me. Okay, let's see. So far, time blocking seems to be the popular one. Excellent. If you guys have do you have any questions about how you start with time blocking? Jake says he's tried outsourcing emails before, and definitely number 2, which is the time blocking, was difficult for me. Great. So Jake, You want to try number one, flagging if you're not already doing that. Let's see, question here. Is it up to us to determine how many time blocks per day? Yes, it's totally up to you to determine how many time blocks per day. I would suggest no more than 3 in a given day. So like 3, during business hours. A lot of people can get away with 1. Most people are most comfortable with 2. 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon. But it is up to you to figure that out. And the key part to make that time block work is to set a time for when the time block is over. So Calendar does a great job of telling you when you should start a task, but it won't tell you when you should end it. So you actually need to have 2 reminders set up, one to start your email and another one to end your email. And that ending your email is a lot more difficult than starting it, believe me. Terry says, probably good for more than just email set meetings with yourself. Yes, it's great for a lot more than just email. For businesses like ours, where we're trying to do business development and also deliver work for our clients, block schedules are really powerful. You can block off days, entire days to focus on business planning. You can block off your mornings to focus on networking, whatever you want to do. So yes, you can use time blocks for a lot more than just email. It's just good for overall managing your tasks. The key is to be able to stick to it. And when you have emergencies come up in the middle of the day, that's when things get a little bit more difficult. Okay, so let's move on to the second thing. So we've covered email. Next thing I want to talk about is a time diary or time journal or a time log. They're all the same thing. And I'm going to show you mine right now. This will be available to you for download after the webinar is over, and I've posted it in the Spark library. You can go ahead and download this, this time log. This one has 2 sheets. The first sheet that you can see here, this is on a for one day. So it starts at 5, ends at 12:30 at night, and it's in 30-minute increments. So the way you use this is every day you just write in what activity it is that you're doing in 30-minute blocks. At the end of it, so you're going to have some activity here, some things here, right, all the way down. At the end of it, then you go over to your analysis section and you figure out your activities. So one example might be email. Another one might be networking, perhaps. Another one might be clients. One that gets overlooked a lot is driving. It's astonishing how much time we're in our cars, especially if you're in the Bay Area. It's ridiculous. And then you put in the time spent, and you can very quickly figure out for a given day where your time is going. So that's one way to do it. Another way to do it is to use this other one. This is going to be the second tab of the spreadsheet. And as you can see, this covers the entire week. So it goes Monday through Sunday. Again, 5 to 12:30. So it's going to be smaller spaces to write in, but the principle is the same. So the idea is if you're tracking it for a week, which is what I would suggest, a typical representative week, not a holiday week, or the week after holidays, or the week before holidays, but just a typical normal week. If you want to do just several of these, like 7 of these, then you can use this, the daily. If you're more comfortable seeing everything on one sheet of paper for an entire week, you can use the weekly tracker. Whichever one you feel most comfortable with. They're both in the Excel file, so you can download them and just click on whichever tab you want. So that's the time log. Any questions about how this should be used? Terrific. Let's see here. Terry says, how much detail do you go into? Good question, Terry. So I don't go into a lot of detail at all because I'm trying to find patterns. So I'll have driving, my marketing things I might break out. So if I'm doing networking, I might say networking, but I won't say necessarily what event I'm doing. So if I'm doing a client lunch, I'll write down business lunch or something, put that in there. If you're involved in community service, I would definitely write out community service for all the activities you're associated with, rather than saying Rotary and Lions Club and Chamber, and because that just tends to dilute it all. We're trying to come up with big chunks and big buckets so we can figure out if we're spending too much time in those big buckets. So community service is one, driving is one, client work is another, office admin time is usually a good one. I had a client that liked to take power naps, so they would take power naps after lunch. They would do like a little siesta thing in their office, and then they would do one late afternoon, and then one in the morning or something like that. So I actually had them as part of the journal, write down how much time it was that they were actually napping. Turned out they were burning up about an hour and a half every day doing that. So it's going to be somewhat customized, but you want to keep it pretty high level. If you need to, if that doesn't give you the detail you want, you can always get more specific on certain categories. Hopefully that answered your question, Terry. If not, just type in more and we'll get you off mute and get it answered. So the third thing I wanted to talk about in the time we have left, excellent, Terry, is the ABCDE method of time management. Now, the ABCDE method is a to-do list on steroids. And here's how it works. Really very straightforward. Step one, you start by making a list of everything you have to do. Okay? Then you add to it, and you put down all you could do. In your business. And then you want to make sure you're answering this question. What can I do to make progress towards my goals? What can I do to make progress towards my goals? And you want to make sure those things are incorporated. So at the end of it, you've just got this big old list of stuff that you could be doing. It's not categorized, it's not filtered, it's just everything that's out there. The next thing you do, step number 2, is you do start to filter the list. So what we're going to do is we're going to assign letters to each of those tasks. And again, remembering that we want to prioritize the important things over the easy ones, this is where that prioritization comes in. So the A tasks, must do. So let me get some color going here. So the A tasks are the must do. So if you're doing this the night before, which I recommend, the A's are the tasks that you must do tomorrow. If you're doing it the day of, maybe in the morning, not as good as doing it the night before, because you use up valuable time during the day getting organized, but it's better than not doing it at all. It would be today. But what are the things you have to do in the next 12 hours, 24 hours, whatever it is, to really move your business forward towards the goals? These are typically the urgent things. Sometimes they're not very important, but they just have to get done. Next thing you want to do, these are the things that you should do. And I'm writing them in green for a very specific reason. Oftentimes, the big opportunities in our business are not the things that we feel that we have to do. Because nothing's going to go wrong if we don't do our B tasks. But if we want to seize the opportunities, they're going to be living here, because we know we should do these things. At the same time, there's no one really holding a big stick over our heads telling us that, yep, you have to do them or bad things are going to happen. It's not it at all. These tasks are opportunities. They're things that you know you should be doing, but you're not. So the B is in green because it really is the money color. That's where you're going to see all those really fruitful opportunities. The C tasks, actually, let's see here. The C tasks are the things that maybe you would like to do. Oftentimes, these are things that are easier to do, but they don't really have that much of an impact on the business either way. A lot of times, the big issue happens when we treat a C task like it was an A task. And if you don't have this prioritization scheme, it's very easy to do the things that you like to do, but not the things that you must or should be doing. So the C tasks are oftentimes the distractions. And having this kind of schema can help you avoid that. So you've got your A, B, and your C. The D stands for delegate. Any task that can be delegated needs to get a D, and it gets delegated immediately. And last but not least, we have the E tasks, which are whatever is left over. If it's not an A, B, C, or a D, it means it's not going to have any value on your business either way. And you should just go ahead and eliminate it. It doesn't matter. It may seem like it does, but it really doesn't. There's just no benefit or penalty whether it gets done or it doesn't, or it's not done. It just doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. So if you go through this, every task you came up with on your master list should now have a letter next to it. So if it's a delegation task, we go ahead and we delegate it. If it's a elimination task, we go ahead and eliminate it. And that just leaves us with A, B, and C for this next step. And so here's what we do. Really, really straightforward. We just assign numerical values to it. A1, we just take all the A's and we assign a number to them. Okay, and I'm just going to show you an example here. Let's say we had 4 A tasks. They would be numbered A1 through A4. A1 needs to be done first. A2 is done second. A3 is done third. A4 is done fourth. And then let's say we had a couple of B tasks. Let's call them B1 and B2. B1 is done fifth. B2 is done sixth. Okay? That's how you organize this list. I will be giving you some templates that you can use if you want to do this digitally. This process needs to be done on paper, but then if you want, you can enter them into your worksheet in the order that that you list them, and that way some people find that easier to do. The key is you work on A1 and only on A1 until it's done, and then and only then do you move on to A2. Work on A2 until it's done, and then so on. So you may never get through this list in a given day, but you'll always know that you've done the most important thing with the best use of your time, and that's what's going to make you progress. So real quick for everyone on the phone, what's been most valuable to you so far from today? Go ahead and type it in the chat box. What's been most valuable from today's webinar? Okay, discipline daily, ABCDE plan, refocusing every single day. Fantastic. Terrific insights, guys. And you got it. Get into the practice, work these plans, and if you are able to follow even half of what we talked about today, you're going to see some dramatic improvements and some progress in your business. So with that, have a fantastic week ahead. Once I get all the worksheets and all that posted, I'll go ahead and send out an email so you can log in and grab all the good stuff. And remember to get me your weekly project plans by Friday. If you don't know what those are, ping me offline, let me know, and I'm happy to explain all of that to you. And as always, if you need any help or you're stuck, go ahead and book in for a 15-minute triage call. We'll get you unstuck and get you on your way. All right? Have a great day and be great today. Thank you all so much.